Zaina used to walk with her head down, hiding her worn-out shoes and torn dreams. She loved Adam with her whole heart, even when his family mocked her for being poor. His mother once told her, "You can marry my son when you can afford to walk in gold." Everyone laughed. Adam didn't say a word. That silence crushed her more than the insults. On the day they were supposed to finalize the wedding, Zaina disappeared. No messages, no goodbyes, just gone. But Zaina wasn't broken. She was building. She left the city and worked day and night. She joined a tech startup, learned coding, slept in offices, survived on noodles. When the company failed, she started her own. From a tiny rented room, she built a business. Then another, then one more. Within a year, she became one of the youngest tech entrepreneurs in Africa, wealthy, powerful, and silent, just like before. Then came Adam's wedding day. A crowd gathered. Photographers waited. But just before the ceremony started, a line of luxury cars rolled in. Out stepped Zaina, in a stunning golden gown, surrounded by bodyguards. Everyone turned. Everyone froze. She walked straight to Adam and smiled. "I couldn't walk in gold then," she said softly, "but I do now." And she left, without looking back. Ao never had a last name anyone remembered. She grew up in a dusty orphanage on the edge of town, where her dreams were bigger than her shoes, and her heart even bigger than her voice. When she fell in love with Dyron, she thought maybe, just maybe, her past wouldn't matter. But Dyron's family had other plans. They mocked her gently at first. Small comments like, "Does she even know who her parents are?" Or, "We hope she doesn't bring that orphanage smell to the wedding." Ao smiled through it all. She loved Dyron. That was enough, until one dinner changed everything. His mother humiliated her in front of guests. "You should be grateful we're even accepting you. Our driver's daughter would have been a better choice." Everyone laughed, including Dyron. Ao sat still, her food untouched, her heart crumbling. That night, she left without saying a word. No calls, no texts. She vanished. What they didn't know was that Ao went back to the same orphanage and began to build from the ashes. She started a small online book business, then a tutoring app, then a full education platform. Her brand exploded. Schools partnered with her. Donors lined up. In just 3 years, she became one of the youngest CEOs in Africa's education tech space. On the day Dyron was supposed to marry someone else, a buzz filled the venue. Cameras turned. A convoy of sleek black cars rolled in. Out stepped Ao, in a white power suit, with elite security surrounding her and news reporters rushing for a quote. She walked down the same aisle she was once denied and stood calmly in front of Dyron's shocked mother. "You once said I had no name," Ao said, voice calm but firm. "Today, my name funds the education of 200,000 children, including your nephew." Then she smiled, turned around, and walked back out, leaving behind gasps, silence, and a story no one would ever forget. Nala was always the quiet one. She didn't argue, didn't complain. She just listened. Even when her fiancé, Malik, would say things like, "You're lucky I chose you," or "Without me, who would even notice you?" she stayed silent. His family joined in too. They called her the girl with no spark, a background extra in her own love story. The night before their engagement party, Malik told her plainly, "You're not much, Nala, but you'll make a decent wife. Stay quiet, and don't embarrass me." That was the last thing he ever said to her. She disappeared the next morning. No one knew that Nala had been working on something in secret, a small lab project in her mother's kitchen. While everyone mocked her, she was building a device to convert waste into clean energy for remote villages. Her invention caught the attention of scientists abroad, then investors, then the United Nations. In just 2 years, the silent girl from nowhere became the face of green innovation, winning awards across the globe. On the day Malik was set to marry someone else, the guests at the venue began murmuring. A helicopter landed on the nearby field. Out stepped Nala, dressed in emerald silk, escorted by international security and a team of women engineers from around the world. She didn't look angry. She didn't look proud. She looked peaceful. Malik froze. His mother whispered, "Is that Nala?" Nala walked to them, holding a golden box. Inside it was the original ring he had given her, and a handwritten letter she had once written begging him to believe in her. She placed it in his hand, smiled softly, and said, "Thank you for never listening. You gave me silence, and I filled it with greatness." Then she turned and left. Her silence had finally spoken. Thandi stood quietly that night as Saifo's mother tore her apart in front of everyone. She has no class, no name, no money. My son deserves a queen, not a charity case, the woman said loudly, sipping her wine like she had done it all before. Sifo just stood beside her, not saying a word, not even looking at Thandi. He didn't defend her, not once. Humiliated and heartbroken, Thandi left with nothing. No goodbye, no fight, just silence and tears in the back of a taxi. That night, she promised herself something. She would never beg for respect again. No one heard from her after that. Not for 2 years. But Thandi wasn't hiding. She was working. She used the skills her late father taught her, agriculture and land management, to build a massive farming business. One that produced organic goods for major stores, created jobs in rural communities, and made her one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the region. She never called Sifo, never looked back, but fate had other plans. On the day Sifo was set to marry someone new, guests arrived at a lavish venue. Ironically, the same estate where Thandi had once been shamed. Everything was perfect, until the sound of a helicopter roared overhead. It landed right on the venue's lawn. The doors opened, and there she was, Thandi, dressed in royal white, sunglasses on, guarded by elite security, stepping onto the grass like she owned it. Because she did. She had secretly bought the entire venue 6 months earlier through one of her companies. Sifo's mouth dropped. His bride looked confused. His mother turned pale. Thandi walked straight up to them and said calmly, "I just came to collect today's rent. Hope the event doesn't run late. We charge extra after 6 p.m. Then she turned to leave, a small smile on her face, while the world watched in stunned silence. Thandi didn't need revenge. She had something better: power, peace, and the last word. Amara was always known as the Barefoot Girl. She grew up in a small village, with dusty roads and little money, but a heart full of dreams. When she fell in love with Tunji, a man from the city, she thought her life was changing. She believed love would be enough. But the moment Tunji's family met her, the insults started. They laughed at her cracked heels, her handmade dress, the calluses on her palms. "She smells like the sun," one aunt whispered loudly. They called her unworthy, simple, backwards. Even Tunji, the man she loved, stood there and said nothing. A week before the wedding, she overheard him say, "She's just a village project. She'll never fit into our world." That night, Amara quietly packed her bag and left without a word. What no one knew was that Amara had been making skincare bombs from natural herbs in her village for years. She believed in the healing power of nature. When she left, she took that knowledge, partnered with a small investor, and started her own skincare line using ingredients from her homeland. People laughed at first, until the creams started going viral online. Orders came from all over the world. Within 2 years, her brand was worth millions. She never looked back. Until one day, her wedding day. Not hers, actually. Tunji's. The crowd waited at the venue, when suddenly black SUVs rolled up. Media vans followed. Cameras flashed. Then, Amara stepped out, dressed in gold silk, glowing skin, heels clicking on the stone path. She was flanked by bodyguards and journalists. Her entrance shut the whole place down. People whispered, "Is that Amara?" She walked straight up to Tunji and said, calmly, "I came to thank you. You tried to bury me, but you didn't know I was a seed." Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind gasps, silence, and a story the internet would never forget. The Barefoot Girl had become the storm. Everyone thought Malika was living every girl's dream. She was about to marry Kojo, the handsome son of a powerful hotel owner. But behind the pretty pictures and shiny ring, there was something darker. Just a week before the wedding, Kojo's family gave her a prenup. It was cold and cruel. It said if Kojo left her, she would walk away with nothing. No support, no home, no rights. When Malika looked at Kojo, hoping he'd defend her, he just said, "It's normal. My family has to protect their name." Her heart broke that day, but she didn't argue. She quietly signed the papers. Then she vanished for a while, saying she needed space before the wedding. What Kojo didn't know was that Malika had a secret. Before meeting Kojo, she had been building a small fashion business. She designed handmade clothes, sold them online, and saved every penny. After the prenup, she used those savings to make the biggest move of her life. Through silent partners and private deals, she bought shares in her fiancé's father's hotel, little by little. By the wedding day, she owned the entire building. When the guests arrived, everything looked perfect: flowers, music, food. Kojo waited proudly in his suit, thinking he had won. Then the doors opened. Malika walked in wearing a dazzling dress, bodyguards behind her, and a calm, fearless smile on her face. She walked to the stage, picked up the mic, and said, "There will be no wedding today." Everyone gasped. "I'm canceling this event. The owner of this hotel doesn't approve of this marriage." Whispers filled the hall. Then she looked straight at Kojo and added, "And I am the owner." Malika turned and walked away, leaving everyone stunned. She didn't just break the wedding, she owned it. Everyone in the town called her that orphan girl. Safina never had a last name, never knew her parents, and grew up in a small, forgotten orphanage. People used to whisper behind her back, say she had no value, no future. But the worst came from the one person she thought truly saw her, her fiancé, Farid. Farid was charming, rich, and loved attention. At first, he seemed kind to Safina, but when his family mocked her, he stayed quiet. Once, during a family dinner, his mother said, "What kind of man marries a girl who doesn't even have a family name?" Farid just laughed. That night, Safina cried silently. The next morning, she disappeared. What no one knew was that Safina had been writing poetry since she was a child. Her words came from pain, silence, and hope. She had started sharing her poems online under the pen name No Name Bird. People around the world connected with her voice. Slowly, her followers grew into millions. Her words healed others, and healed her too. She got offers, published books, even spoke at global events. But she never showed her face. Until her wedding day. Everyone waited for the bride. The hall was packed, decorations sparkling, media flashing cameras. Farid stood with his usual proud smile. Suddenly, black SUVs arrived. Bodyguards stepped out first. Then came Safina, in a golden dress, calm and powerful. Whispers filled the air. "Isn't that No Name Bird?" She walked to the stage, took the mic, and faced Farid. "You once laughed because I had no name. But today, the world knows me by the name I chose. One that stands for every girl who was forgotten." Tears ran down people's faces. Farid stood frozen. Then Safina turned, smiled at the crowd, and walked out. She didn't just own her name now. She owned her story. Everyone knew Kimmy as the girl from the streets. She grew up selling bread with her mother at the roadside. She was smart, kind, and hardworking. But to people like Deli and his wealthy family, none of that mattered. When Kimmy got engaged to Deli, everyone whispered that she wasn't his level. His mother called her a charity case. Deli never corrected them. In fact, one day he joked in front of his friends, "She's lucky I'm marrying her. Where else would a girl like that end up?" Kimmy heard him. She didn't cry. She just quietly left his house that evening and never came back. No one knew where she went. She blocked Deli, disappeared from social media, and stayed silent. People said she had run away, embarrassed. But Kimmy had not run away. She had found her strength. What most didn't know was that the driver who used to drop Kimmy off at Deli's house, Mr. Tund, was not just a driver. He was the son of a powerful billionaire who had chosen a humble life after a falling out with his father. Tund saw Kimmy's pain, her worth, and her fire. They stayed in touch after she left. And over time, they fell in love, quietly, deeply. On what was supposed to be Kimmy's wedding day with Deli, guests gathered in a huge hall, wondering if she'd even show up. Then came the sound of expensive cars pulling up. Bodyguards stepped out. And from the middle car, Kimmy appeared, dressed in glowing white, holding the arm of her husband, Tund. Gasps filled the air. Cameras flashed. Kimmy smiled softly and looked at Deli. "Thank you for showing me who you really are. Because I might have married a man with money. But today, I married a man with heart." She didn't stay long, just long enough to remind them. She was never from the streets. She was always meant for more. Everyone knew Kimmy as the girl from the streets. She grew up selling bread with her mother at the roadside. She was smart, kind, and hardworking. But to people like Deli and his wealthy family, none of that mattered. When Kimmy got engaged to Deli, everyone whispered that she wasn't his level. His mother called her a charity case. Deli never corrected them. In fact, one day he joked in front of his friends, "She's lucky I'm marrying her. Where else would a girl like that end up?" Kimmy heard him. She didn't cry. She just quietly left his house that evening and never came back. No one knew where she went. She blocked Deli, disappeared from social media, and stayed silent. People said she had run away, embarrassed. But Kimmy had not run away. She had found her strength. What most didn't know was that the driver who used to drop Kimmy off at Deli's house, Mr. Tund, was not just a driver. He was the son of a powerful billionaire who had chosen a humble life after a falling out with his father. Tund saw Kimmy's pain, her worth, and her fire. They stayed in touch after she left. And over time, they fell in love, quietly, deeply. On what was supposed to be Kimmy's wedding day with Deli, guests gathered in a huge hall, wondering if she'd even show up. Then came the sound of expensive cars pulling up. Bodyguards stepped out, and from the middle car, Kimmy appeared, dressed in glowing white, holding the arm of her husband, Tund. Gasps filled the air. Cameras flashed. Kimmy smiled softly and looked at Deli. "Thank you for showing me who you really are. Because I might have married a man with money, but today, I married a man with heart." She didn't stay long, just long enough to remind them. She was never from the streets. She was always meant for more. Lindy was just a wedding dancer. At least that's what they used to say. She danced with her whole heart at weddings, birthdays, and festivals. Her energy lit up the room, but behind every performance was a girl struggling to survive. She came from a poor family and worked hard just to feed her younger siblings. She didn't mind the sweat, the stares, the tired feet, until that night. It was a big wedding, fancy people, expensive food, bright lights. Lindy was booked to perform. She had practiced for weeks, excited to finally dance in front of such a crowd. But midway through her performance, the groom's sister whispered something loud enough for the guests to hear. Look at her, shameless, dancing for coins like a stray. The laughter hit harder than any fall. Lindy finished the dance with tears in her eyes and left that night without saying a word. Nobody saw her again. What no one knew was that someone at that wedding had recorded her dance and uploaded it online. Within days, the video went viral. Her grace, her passion, her pain, it reached millions. A Netflix producer in the US saw it and reached out. Lindy left the country quietly and began a new journey. She trained, performed, acted, and soon became the lead star in a Netflix series based on her life, Dance Against the Silence. Exactly 1 year later, the same family that humiliated her was celebrating another wedding. And just when the ceremony began, a convoy of black SUVs arrived. Out stepped Lindy, surrounded by bodyguards, choreographers, and dancers from all over the world. The music played. Not just any music, her soundtrack. And there, in front of the same people who once mocked her, Lindy danced again. But this time, the applause was louder than the laughter had ever been. Fanta still remembered that night, how they laughed at her. It was the engagement dinner, and she had worn a simple golden necklace her mother gave her. It wasn't real gold, but it had real love in every link. Her fiancé's mother had whispered loudly enough for others to hear. Look at that fake jewelry. Cheap girl, cheap taste. The guests chuckled. Fanta had smiled quietly, but inside, something broke. She went home and took off that necklace with shaking hands. Not because she was ashamed, but because she knew she'd never let anyone make her feel small again. That night, she left their world behind. No calls, no messages. She disappeared. But while the world thought she ran away in shame, Fanta was building something. She traveled to small villages and found women like her, craftswomen who made beautiful jewelry but had no platform. She worked day and night, learned business, sold online, expanded globally. Within 2 years, she became the founder of Gold from Her Hands, a brand selling handcrafted gold made by women across Africa. The wedding day came. Her ex-fiancé stood waiting at the altar with a fake smile, pretending nothing had happened. His family looked proud, smug even. But suddenly, a sleek gold car rolled in. Security stepped out first. Then came Fanta. She was glowing, draped in pure gold jewelry designed by her own artisans. Her earrings sparkled like fire. Her bracelets told stories, and around her neck was a new version of that same necklace. This time, made from the finest gold in Ghana. Gasps filled the air. Phones came out. The media, already alerted by her team, captured every moment. Fanta walked up to the altar, smiled gently at her ex, and said, "I didn't come to marry. I came to return what you gave me. Nothing." She handed back the old ring and walked out, her head high, her gold shimmering in the sun. She didn't just wear gold that day. She became it.